to One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, where we get curious about what makes us tick. We're here today with a lady whose epithet needs no introduction, the Naked Warrior. Welcome, Claire Johnson.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great. It's so nice to have a conversation which isn't with the sound of motorsport and cars going around circuits in the background. So,
I know.
So thanks for coming. So for those who don't know, why don't you just start off by telling us, what do you do?
I'm a driver performance, nutrition and fitness coach, and I work with drivers on an individual basis, and I work with motorsport teams and academies to help their drivers at track and outside of track with my RaceFit program. And I also do a lot of wellbeing corporate seminars and education services within the motorsport space as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you clearly enjoy it, because whenever I've seen you at a race circuit, you know, you're buzzing.
Yeah.
You know, you're really on it. So.
How can you not be? It's just the energy that's there. It's the excitement. It's the sounds and the smells. You know, I love it.
Oh, that's very true, actually, isn't it? There is something about... it's really difficult, actually, in today's world, isn't it? You know, to be a petrol head in today's world. But there is something about the smell and the atmosphere. And I'm sure we'll get into it as well, but I'm eternally interested and curious about you know, the energy that people have and what that does in their performance. So let's see where we get to. I've got to ask, so the Naked Warrior, how did that come about?
Well, when people say, why the Naked Warrior, I always say, well, it's a conversation starter, which is a little bit of a joke because it has initiated a lot of conversations. But originally it came from my old company, which used to be Alpha Fit Female, which was all about female empowerment and helping women be better and be the best that they could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And then I evolved and moved that into being the Naked Warrior to make it more accessible and not too elitist, and bring it out about being real, being raw, being genuine, being strong, being fierce, being feminine, and bringing that together, and then just helping people feel empowered and that they can be true to themselves and be strong and vulnerable at the same time.
I really like that. And also it's catchy, isn't it? It catches the eye as well. So how did you end up doing that? Tell us as far back as you want to go. But what's the journey? How do you become in this amazing job that you've got now?
I've been within health and fitness for 20 years. About 20 years. I'm not going to say anymore because then you'll know how old I am. But I've always been interested in, you know, physical performance and the mental side of things as well, and the mindset around training and nutrition habits. And, you know, I've worked with a lot of people internationally, both here in the UK and also Australia and New Zealand. And, you know, I saw a lot of things, and a lot of people got results once they switch their mind on and they overcome the limiting beliefs within that. And then obviously, like I said, it got a lot more into the female empowerment side of things. And then fast track about 15 years, we had COVID and lockdown. And then I published my second book, which was The Winning Formula, Discovering Your Secrets to Being Alpha Female. And within that, I interviewed females in sport who were at the top of their profession and who were doing what they loved, but in a traditional male environment. So obviously within that, I had a couple of motorsport drivers as well. I had Penny Mallory, who was an ex-rallycross champion, and she's now known as the UK's toughest mindset coach or mental toughness coach, and a lady who is the first ladies of Hot Wheels Monster Truck from the States. And she was actually the inspiration for the book, because I took my son to go and see the Monster Truck show. And I was like, wow, look at her. She's like literally on fire and she's loving what she's doing. She's a tiny little redhead thing. And she was driving these massive big trucks and she was the only woman there. And I thought, how did she do that? And then it inspired the book. So, you know, I interviewed Gabby Logan as well. She was the first lady to broadcast a live football show. Had Charlotte Edwards in there, the England cricket captain. Claudia MacDonald, who was in the rugby team for England as well. So all of these women who were doing what they loved. So I interviewed them to find out what was the common links with them, and created a guide for the readers to see, okay, so if you want to follow your passion, then how do you do it? How do you become alpha female? Which is a kind of a word that I've adopted, which I'm sure we'll get on to shortly.
There's so much I want to unpack already.
I know. And so then the book got published just as we were coming out of lockdown. And, you know, one of the only things you could really do at the time was to go karting. So I was going down to my local karting track, and I wear a bright blue race racesuit, I'm all branded up as well. And then I got noticed for being quite fast, and I was asking if we could do a book launch for the book and have a community event to bring more females onto track, get them inspired, and bring them into something positive. Obviously, after coming out of lockdown as well. They then asked me if I could be a ambassador and a role model to get more women into motorsport and on track. They asked me to be a BIKC ambassador and actually compete in the British Indoor Karting Championships.
Brilliant.
So I said yes, which I did, and got through to the local finals as well, which was a very interesting journey. And again, it brought out more of the drive and the passion for what I wanted to do, is to get more women into motorsport, because I was probably the only older female there and the only female as well. And then from there I started working with Formula Women as their lead nutritionist in 2021, and I was on the health and fitness team doing all of the fitness assessments. Started training a lot of the females that were coming through for the competition, which is all about getting a beginner female out on track. And I think out of the 50 finalists that went through, I'd worked with about 22 of them. So yeah, I was like, okay, let's do this. Then FIA Girls on Track asked me to do work with them, and then it just escalated from there. Now work with a W Series driver, drivers 1-to-1 in many different series, JCW Mini Challenge, we've got Ginetta Series, Porsche, and then also still do work with Team Sport BIKC, and I've also do a little bit more with the FIA, and what else do I do? Loads of different stuff, different motorsport teams and academies that are coaching their drivers to come through, and also do corporate presentations for some Formula One teams as well.
So your working week is clearly longer than 7 days.
Say that again.
Your working week is clearly longer than 7 days.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you keep focused? How do you keep positive all the time?
I just love what I do.
Right.
And it's, being able to see the transformational change in people excites me. Showing them what's possible excites me. And by doing and demonstrating through all the things that I do, I know that it inspires other people as well. Yeah. So I do all of that. And then I have my own private fitness clients and my online coaching clients. And then I have my family life as well. So it's, if I can do all of that, then, people can as well. And I seem to have a crazy amount of energy. And people often say to me, you're like a machine. But I'm just driven and purpose-driven as well. So I think that's the key difference.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a thing which some people would refer to as like a flow state.
Yeah.
Where you're so doing what you love that the clock almost becomes irrelevant. You kind of time just flies by.
Yeah.
And that you must be in that flow state, as they call it, for a lot of the time.
Yeah, I do get into flow state, and I kind of liken flow state to where you switch off and you're not thinking. And so when I have been racing or doing anything like that, you're fully focused on that task. Yeah. I guess with what I do, it's because I'm that action driven and task orientated. It's, and I've got that purpose. That's what gets me to do it. And then the brain thinks, and then there's always these other opportunities. Yeah. And I'm a massive, I don't know if it's a fault of mine, but, I'm very determined, but also I don't like thinking that I could have done better or missing out on an opportunity. So I will always drive myself to do more. Yeah. Just to help and inspire other people. Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't say that's a fault. We're all different, aren't we? Yeah. What suits you is maybe not someone else, but I think absolutely. So what I'd like to do, there's so much that I want to come back to.
Sure.
And I've got a couple of notes here which I've made, but let's go right back. So you've been into this for a long time. So how did you get to that? What got you into this? What was the background? What were your interests? How did you end up on this trajectory? How do you get from that person that was at school to the person you are now? Because we traditionally think there's a route, don't we? You go to school, you do well. You go to college, you do well. You get a steady job, you do well. You retire, you die. It's.
I break that mold.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people do. So I'm really curious as to what your route was.
The irony is people look at me and they see how passionate I am about fitness and helping other people be fit and healthy, and they think that I was naturally a sporty person. And I was into sports at school and I played a lot growing up, and I didn't. I was the girl at the back of the room, and I was writing notes from my mum, forging notes to get me out swimming because I hated it. Yeah, I think she did know about that. But I left school. I left school probably at 16. I wanted to leave. I wanted to change my environment because I didn't feel like, looking back now, I didn't feel that it was allowing me to grow. I felt stifled by the surroundings that I had, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed in doing everything the same as everyone else. That wasn't for me. So then,
what was that sort of education, school process, community?
Yeah, I clearly remember thinking, like, 15, I'm not going to go to the sixth form at the school that I was at. Everyone else is doing it. I want to change. I want to do something different because I'm not going to grow. I want to experience different things.
Yeah.
And
did you have any role models at the time? Were there people that you were aspiring or looked at and thought, I want to do what you're doing, or was this completely adventurous?
It was just my nature. And I just knew that I wanted to change. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be around the same things that weren't going to challenge me or teach me things new. And I've always had a massive thirst for knowledge and wanting to learn and experience new things. So I left school, went to college, actually trained as a legal secretary, did all the law education and qualifications, did that for about 3 years in and out of London commuting. And I got to a point, I'm like, this isn't for me. I'm too stationary. I'm too chatty. I need to be moving. I need to be physical. And that's when it more evolved into, then becoming teaching aerobics, personal trainer, gym management, health club lifestyles. And then I moved over to Australia and I lived in Sydney for 7 years. And whilst I was in Sydney, I worked with a company which was the largest personal training organisation within Sydney. So I did many different roles there, training the new trainers coming in, looking after their franchise development. So it was still within the health and fitness industry in a fitness-based like corporate company. And I was still doing my teaching. I also competed myself in female bodybuilding, like figure competitions. So it's always been part of what I do.
Right.
And I just love it. I don't feel like I function right if there's not movement and, fitness in my life, really.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people will look at people doing what they perceive to be really exciting stuff, and maybe almost think, I'm never going to be able to do that because I am, training to be this or training to be that. So I think it's really important for people to hear that, you did train in that role, and then changed, because it's okay to change, isn't it? Yeah. So the other thing I'm interested about, so you race yourself, as you said in karting. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on, do you think it's important to, if you're coaching in a space, I mean, particularly I suppose what you're doing is driver performance coaching, do you think it's really important to have personally competed or have some involvement in that industry to make it successful?
Absolutely, I do, because it gives you the authenticity and the understanding and the empathy for what your drivers are going through. I know a number of performance coaches who have different backgrounds, who potentially don't I think I'm one of the only performance coaches who does actually race, and probably one of the only female ones there as well. So you don't necessarily need to have that, because you need to have an understanding of how the human body works and the physiological responses and how to train someone, which across the board we have all got. From a mindset perspective, it's funny because I've got into behind the wheel. I was racing at Brands Hatch once, and I got behind the wheel and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I suddenly started to feel really nervous. Oh, my hands have gone clammy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, okay, wow, I was not expecting that, because I understand all the processes and I understand how to race, but then it just came over me. Then I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's how my drivers are going to feel. So it just gives me that empathy. And I was asked recently to go to a event and be at a karting event, and I was asked to go onto track as well, and I wasn't supposed to go onto track, and I was going round and round and just trying to help the other ladies that were out on track, and I got off and I was like, I wonder what my time was, and I was third. I was like, okay, get it. But it's a part of that, being that inspirational role model and having that credibility, so people and I think it's important. Trying to be a woman in a man's world, there still sometimes is that little bit of a stigma, which gives me the confidence to know that, I do know what I'm talking about. I do know what I'm doing, and here's my proof. I'm a massive believer in action over words.
I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, a lot of the work that I do, where you'll spend a lot of time with people talking about and thinking about stuff, and coming up with strategies and personal strategies, but you've got to go do it, haven't you? You've actually got to do it to make a difference. The other thing I'm just curious about, so I'm just going to jump around a little bit on my list here. talking about woman in a man's world, that kind of thing, and you use this term, the alpha female.
Yeah.
Can we just explore that? Because, we use the term alpha male a lot, and I think, we have a picture in our head about, what we're talking about there. What do you mean by the alpha female, and what are the parallels and differences, do you think?
I use the term alpha female differently to what the dictionary or people's perceptions are of alpha male, which is interesting because you can look in the dictionary, find alpha male, but you don't find alpha female.
Right.
Alpha male, it's all about trying to be dominant, being the leader. Typically you'll think of a lion and its pride and the dominant side, and trying to take each other out.
Yeah.
And with alpha female, it's all about being the best possible version of yourself and being alpha for you. So being the best person that you can be and doing all that you can and surrounding yourself with the right people, creating the right mindset so you're empowered to go and live the best life that you can.
Do you know, there's something there that really resonates with me, some conversations I've had with people over recent weeks about this thing about being the best version of yourself, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there, particularly in social media as well, where to be successful and to be your best you, actually it's almost portrayed as it's not being the best you, it's being this happy clappy positive thinking board, but actually someone's best might just be that they can walk up a set of stairs unaided.
Yeah.
It's very different, and I think it's really important for people to find their own best.
Yeah, and it's about being authentic and doing what they want to, and being okay with saying no to things that don't suit them. So having that confidence and that empowerment, so that they're truly connected to, like I said before, their purpose and who they are.
Yeah.
So then they're alpha within themselves. So they're not competing with anyone. They're not feeling like they have to do things, and they're just doing what is right for them.
And so when you start working with someone, how do you almost help them find out what the best version of themselves could be?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, we have a look at what their goals are. And then I always listen to the language that people use, because the language lets me know a lot about where their mindset is at. And then so immediately I can see where we can make some tweaks, so then they can then go and achieve different goals, like small goals to start off with, whether it be around racing, around fitness, or around mindset. Achieve small goals first, and then they start to feel confident, and they're like, oh, I can do that, and then you actually see that physical shift, and the light bulb goes off, and they're like, okay, now what else can I do?
Yeah.
So it's building up that, and then the more you do that, then obviously you're just going to be improving yourself anyway.
Have you ever come across or any situations where you've worked with someone, or maybe you've chosen not to work with someone, where you think their aspirations are significantly unrealistic? They've got this thing that I want to achieve that, but you think, I think that's way out of what your ability is. Do you ever come across that at all?
No, because people don't aim high enough.
That's a good art. I like that. Yeah.
People always limit themselves. So I talk a lot about, creating what is possible, and then trying to create a pathway there. Someone might be starting in a karting championship indoor, they want to move outdoor and then move up through different club championships, and if they say, I want to be Formula One, it's like, okay, that's a great goal to have. Where are you right now? This is what you'd need to do. And then having a look at the logistics of getting there, and having a backup plan along the way as well. More often than not, I choose to, I actively don't work with people who don't do what they say they're going to do, because it's my biggest bugbear. You need to be congruent, and you need to have integrity, and you need to take action. Yeah. So if I hear people saying, oh, I'm going to do this, or I should do that, or I didn't do this because, it's like, I kind of pull back and I wait to see what people do first, because I will work with anyone if they're willing to work for themselves.
Yeah, because that's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing in this space when you're working with people is you can help them discover, but they've got to put the hard yards in, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. On the nutrition side, this is something that, again, I've become increasingly interested in. The connection, even from a neurological point of view, between mindset and gut and what we put in our body. Just talk a bit to me about the relationship that you've discovered between what you eat and how you perform and mindset, how that all kind of links together.
When you use the word mindset in terms from a nutritional perspective, I think a better word would be to say to mood, because it can influence how you feel, more than which again, yes, would be linking to how you think. But obviously you've got the connection that the vagus nerve that runs from the brain down through to your gut. So, that's one of the only like two-way nerves in your body. So you get signals sent from the gut to the brain, and then the brain back down to your stomach, or gut, I should say. So we need to make sure that what we're eating is feeding our gut in a healthy way, so that it functions correctly. So then you can make sure that those signals being sent up and down are better, like for like a basic level education. But if you think about the last time you sat and you had a really, really big meal and it was quite carby or it was quite heavy and fatty, and then you just sit and it just sits in your tummy and you feel full and you feel lethargic, you automatically think, and your whole body language changes, and and you're like, I can't move, and then then you might have a little food sleep, because your body's like, I've got all this food in my tummy to digest, so it starts to switch things off so it can process all the food, and that's why you have that little sleep after eating a large meal. And you wake up from that and you kind of feel a bit brain foggy, because your body's had to work to burn off the food. So, at a basic level, like that has automatically impacted how you feel, and then you're more lethargic, you're not going to be energetic, so then that's going to impact your mood, and you're less likely to then want to go and do something, go run around or go have a workout. And similarly, if you're not fueling yourself correctly throughout the day, then you're not going to be able to perform in your workouts or your training sessions. So then you're going to start to feel a bit not as energetic, not as strong, and then that's going to trigger and think, I'm not good enough here. So it definitely all interlinks. And I work a lot with drivers at the track around how to eat correctly on race day. One of my things is trying to make, track food healthier. Yes. And teaching and educating drivers on the best things to have. And it's also about the timings of when they're qualifying, when they're racing, what are the best foods to have? Because you don't want to go and have a big, large meal and then, 30 minutes later you're out in the car and, your body's working to digest this food, and you want the blood flow and the oxygen going to your brain to keep you sharp and focused. You don't want to be feeling sluggish as if you just had a massive meal.
There's a lot has changed in this space, isn't it? Because I can remember when I was first into running and into sort of running half marathons and that kind of thing. And right at that time, there was a big school of thought that says, if you're gonna do that, you've got a carb load. There's so much advice of all sorts of different types out there now. I guess what's interesting is what have you found when you're working with a driver, and it may be multiple races and lots of downtime between races? What kind of approach do you tend to recommend to a race driver, and does that have any parallels to people who are not racing?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So, on a race day, a driver needs to be starting in the day with a meal that has like a low glycemic load, which basically means the food that you're eating isn't going to release a sharp spike in your blood sugar levels, because you don't want to have a spike and then crash. So, having something that's going to be released slowly to give you that sustained energy and also that satiety, so you feel full. So perfect would be oats with some protein powder or eggs on toast or something like that. On a race day, keeping meals small and light so that you can digest them quickly, and having snacks with like bananas are great, having a protein bar, having some things like some nuts and some dried fruit are really good snacks to keep you going throughout the day. Once you've raced, make sure that you come out and have something quickly straight away, a little bit of an energy and a protein shake. Always make sure you're hydrating correctly, and then have a good, decent, balanced meal at the end of the day, which is balanced with your good quality carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
So, based on that sounds like it's almost like a lot of small bits to keep you going throughout the day.
It depends. You want to have stuff that's with you, because we all know what it's like at track. If something gets red flagged, all the rest of the races are pushed back. And there's so many other commitments that you have to do. You're going to get off of qualifying, then you're going to be analysing your data, and then you're going to be, if you've got any media things that you need to do. So it's all about making sure that you've got things that you can quickly grab, and that's one of the things that I do with the drivers. I'm constantly saying, when did you last eat? When did you last train? So the mother in me comes out.
No, I mean, I've seen you in action in that. You're asking, have you had something to eat? And yeah. As you did with me when I walked in this morning. I know. It's like caring nature of me, Ian. So, sticking with the nutrition front, And I guess some of the mindset stuff as well. And thinking about the time you've spent in Australia and New Zealand as well, I just wonder what contrasts, differences, parallels you've seen with what goes on in that space there versus what you see here.
I remember when I first went to move to Sydney, I had this perception in my mind that it's going to be next level, a lot more elitist, and I thought, gosh, I'm going to have to up my game. And I got there, I thought, wow, no, I really don't need to, do I? I guess I was shocked and surprised. I was expecting it because obviously, you have this perception it's a lot more outdoorsy and that there would be more people living a healthier lifestyle than what there was. I think at the time when I was there, I think the UK was third on the obesity list and Australia might have been fourth. Yeah. It was something like that. Don't quote me on those. But I remember thinking, okay, there's still a lot of people here who need help, and they still had the same attitudes around food that you do over here. So there wasn't that much difference. What there was more of over there was a lot more accessibility to your fresh fruit and vegetables, farmers markets, more of the specific unique ways of eating. I guess it was, like the vegan and the raw and things like that. They seem to be a little bit more ahead on those alternative sides of eating than over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that's a space? Can you see parity arriving? Is there stuff going on there that you think will cause that balance to change, or do you think culturally there's things at play there as well?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question because there's so many things that are changing over here in current conditions that I think it skews everything when you're comparing to another place. And it's been 7 years since I lived there now as well. So I don't know how much it's changed there now. But from my time that I was there, I couldn't see anything changing massively.
Yeah, it's interesting. The only thing I've observed, not having lived, but I have spent some time and have some friends and family who live in New Zealand. And not from a nutritional point of view, but from a stress point of view, it seems like in general it's a little bit calmer there than it is here.
Yeah, for someone who's action orientated, it can sometimes be a bit frustrating, but you definitely do slow down.
Yeah.
Must admit, I got my first speeding ticket in Australia because
really?
Yeah, they drive in kilometres, and obviously we're miles over here, and it's slower. I was like, oh my god, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to come back to then, we talked a little bit about the book. So let's just go back to that. So just tell me a little bit more about the inspiration to the book, and who would you like to think is reading it? Who were you talking to who are you talking to when you wrote it?
The inspiration, as I said, came from seeing Rebecca Snell jumping around, just living her best life, jumping around next to a monster truck. And then looking to find those similarities and sharing their stories and their journeys. Yeah. Because I've worked with a lot of women over the years, and I've listened to the language that they've used when they feel like, particularly like with a weight loss goal, oh, I can't do this, or they expect me to do this, or I have to be this for my husband or partner or the children, and things like that. They just kind of grate me a little bit, because I'm a massive believer in, it's your life, you're here once, let's make it the best one that you can, and let's look at how we can do it. Yeah. And more often than not, I've seen a lot of women think that they can't do things, or they hold themselves back from their beliefs. So I guess, I wanted to show what's possible, and it's also identifying that it's not easy as well, and that you're going to have these challenges, and this is how you overcome these challenges. So, a lot of the common themes with, I think there was 9 or 10 ladies in the end, because I was in there as well. The common themes were, follow your passion, put a good team around you, have a plan and have a focus and a goal, and know that when the times do get tough and challenging, that you can then lean on your support team, and have those good people around you as well. So it was bringing that about. So for anyone who's reading it, it doesn't necessarily just have to be females, but the drive was to inspire more women, and particularly well, not at a young age, but at any age, you know, that you can go and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen it a lot from young females trying to get into, you know, motorsport or any other areas of work that they want to do. And also with women, you know, after they've had the family and the young kids, they kind of lost their identity, and then they don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, you can, and they're like, but I can't. And like, you can. I like, let's find out how, you know, and I think I demonstrate that a lot with everything that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that adage, isn't it, that we often get in our own way.
Exactly.
For a whole load of reasons.
Yeah. And that makes me sad if I see someone doing that.
It is frustrating, isn't it, when you do see people who, and I see this sometimes at an early age. So I have some involvement with Explorer Scouts in Duke of Edinburgh, and I can remember going back some years now, and I asked this group of teenagers, let's just talk about our dreams. You know, what do you want to be? And obviously you get a wide range. And I can remember the first answer was, I want to go to Mars. And I thought, brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it would be so easy, wouldn't it, to laugh that off and say, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I thought, hang on, you know, teenager now. Yeah, absolutely. That's
that could
brilliant,
be, yeah.
great. You know, can I come too? But then you go around and it's, you know, how about you? Oh, I just want to get a normal job. I'm thinking, what?
Where's the passion?
Where's the passion?
Yeah.
What happened there? So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's conditioning's all around us, isn't it? And I guess, you know, you and I get the luxury, if you like, to operate in the space where we try and help people discover it. But I'm always wondering, how do you reach more people? And one of the reasons for the podcast is, you know, if we can just get people to say,
yeah,
maybe I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So when's the next book?
Funny you should say that. It's in the initial stages of writing down what it's going to be about and who's going to be in it and what its focus is.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so next year.
Next year, I was going to say, so when's that going to be? Because I know you're going to have a target.
Yeah, I know, you know me, and you'd make me accountable to give me that goal as well. I know you.
Oh, that's been brilliant. Claire, I've got one last question I'd like to finish with.
Shoot.
So, and I think you know what's coming if, you know, having listened to the other podcasts. So just imagine now that we've conquered time travel. So you can write a younger Claire a note, which you can leave in a place that you would discover it. And I'm just interested in knowing what you know today, what would you write to yourself?
Getting to do what you love doing earlier.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you very much, Claire. It's been a pleasure and so nice to not have the interruptions that we often do at a racetrack,
yeah.
which is really good. So, Claire, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to One Thought at a Time with our guest this week, Claire, the Naked Warrior. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe. If you'd like to explore our back episodes, please do so with your favourite podcast service, or you can find it on the Thinking It Better YouTube channel. If you'd like to reach out to us here at the podcast, you can do so on our Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok accounts at Thinking It Better or at Ian M. Travers. And if you'd like to reach out to Claire, our guest today, you can get Claire at...
You can come and find me on Instagram at _The Naked Warrior. Search on all the other social handles for The Naked Warrior. Google me, you'll find me, and then just DM and reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claire. And to everyone who's listening now, thanks for listening.